I love the endless possibilities in filmmaking that animation allows me to explore. As a person who tends to create a lot of my work alone, an animation requires only my imagination and time to be realized. In animation, we can choose to make our films about whatever subject we want. Whether your film is set in a made-up world or in a realistic setting doesn't change the creation process that much, like it would if we shot it live action, for example. Even though I love that I can make something fantastical with animation, I also like the fact that I can create a world that is set in our recognizable reality and focus on something I, as a creator, enjoy in my real life. I live in Innsbruck, a town nestled in between the mountain peaks of the Austrian Alps. The sport of rock climbing is a big part of my free time, and whenever the weather allows for it, I aim to go out on the rocks. This passion for one thing works great as a subject for another. I find that as a creator, when it comes to filmmaking and story development, it's important to find subjects that we care about. In my case, I've decided to dedicate my time to an animation project focusing on specifically rock climbing. If you are interested in animation and want to dive deeper into how I create mine, then I have a Patreon page where I post exclusive videos that you don't see here on YouTube. Tutorials and process videos showing my workflows, as well as critique videos where we look at my Patreon's submitted work and then also general behind the scenes content. There's also a Patreon only Discord server where we share our knowledge and work with each other, as well as just connecting and getting to know like-minded people in the industry. If that sounds interesting to you, then feel free to join by just following the link in the description below. For only $5 a month, you get direct access to all of that. Now let's carry on animating some rock climbing. To make a film about rock climbing, and in this specific case, bouldering, which is a discipline of rock climbing where you climb on smaller rock formations, where your fall is protected by crash pads rather than using a rope, and where you could say the focus lies on your physical limit of individual or at least shorter sequences of moves. I'm building my storyline around this practice. Whatever my story happens to be here, it will require me to feature a lot of shots showing my characters projecting this climb. It can't just be two guys showed up at a rock, climbed it, and then went for a pint. Even though that sounds like a great day out, it doesn't make for much of a story, so it will cover a lot of climbing. As an animator and a climber, I want the movements of the climb to feel somewhat realistic and plausible. I would like my climbing peers to be able to relate to the thing they see. I am creating a made-up scenario here, viewed through the lens of my imagination, so it doesn't have to be 100% accurate to life, but I like the idea of getting some details across that might appeal to those who practice the sport, not just a guy flapping his hands floating up a rock. Climbing movement is quite complicated to animate. There is a lot of weight shifting and intricate body positions that allows us to get from point A to B. I have a rough idea of how the whole climb that these characters are projecting in my film would look like if climbed in one take. Not fully yet written in stone, but I have a few key movements that I would like to get in there. And then I have a few bits which needs linking together. When out climbing with my friends, I often bring a camera to both document our day, but also to sneakishly capture a bunch of reference of movements that I can use in this film. Having a library of my own reference shots can help me to compose the movements of my animated character. Whether I stay faithful to the reference or just borrow a small element completely varies. Also at my local climbing wall, I have the option to experiment and set my own boulder problems on the training walls, which helps me to figure out certain movement patterns that I would like to include. I really find this fun because I sort of get to merge the two hobbies into one. The process of creating one of these shots starts out in a rough state where I block out the general movement of the character without any fine details. These drawings are loose and sketchy and allows me to quickly play around with the motion without committing to any drawings. Changes are easy to do now, since I'm not married to any of these drawings here. Once the rough path is established and I can see the movement working, I can start to clean things up a bit and add in more frames to create the right timing between the different body positions. There will be natural pauses in the movement, so I am sometimes holding on some frames longer than others to ramp the speed up and down. When the cleaned up drawings are done, I move on to coloring the animation. Each of these steps are pretty time consuming and challenging in their own way, but eventually you end up with a finished shot that makes it into the sequence of shots that hopefully one day completes the film. The fact that I can combine my two passions here into one helps me to stay motivated when creating this film. My animated films take a long time to create, and to fit it in between my commercial animation work, creating videos for Patreon and YouTube, as well as recently becoming a dad, has its challenges. By supporting me here on YouTube with comments, likes and subscriptions, and even more so on Patreon, helps me to focus more of my time on these videos and my film instead of as much commercial work. My newborn baby still takes up as much time whether you support me or not, so nothing you can influence. Hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in the next one.